Okay, you're live and recording.
All right, you want to slide the microphone up, please?
Can you pass this down, please? Don't hit this circle in the middle.
All righty, well, thank y'all for coming today. Thank you, board members. We'll continue our meeting from March 16th. This will be a continued meeting for budget discussions, and I apologize for the technical difficulties, but even the Super Bowl has those every now and then, so. We have somewhat of an agenda of order of people to talk. Mr. Williams from the building department, does any board members have any questions about how this is going to be handled today?
Mr. Chair, can I have the floor for a second?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Easton, I want to apologize for anything I've done that has offended you. And I'd like to start over fresh.
Thank you, sir. Same here.
All right?
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Easter. Any other board members have any questions before we start? All right, Jerry, you up?
Where do I need to go to? Pier 5?
Sit right there.
Guys, I'm just here to, thank you for your time today. Just here to ask for $6,000 for a part-time, just for a fill-in if Nottaway inspector cannot get over here to help us. He has taken on some additional roles, or is taking on some additional roles. We're just looking at this to potentially help us if we need it in a pinch.
And that is due to, like, when you take off?
Yes, we just like.
Still need inspections to take care of,
Yes, sir. Just need inspections taken care of.
and we have utilized Nottaway before.
Yes, we do now.
Okay.
And we help them as well, but he has taken on he's going through fire marshal schooling, and that may be added responsibility for him where he might not have the time to help us. So we're just trying to be a little proactive here.
Will that fire marshal be available to us?
I don't know. I can find that out for you.
I mean, probably,
So, but I don't know for sure.
I probably wouldn't say we would call him for a arson or a fire, but maybe for some building codes or occupancy permits on certain buildings and stuff.
So,
I know you just took over, not even officially until April 1st, but Carla provided us the fees for all the county services, and I don't think the building inspection fees have been updated in a few years.
okay.
Looking at them, a lot of them are pretty low. And we've talked about before as a board, the point of fees being to cover the cost of services provided, not a profit center, but cover the cost. As the costs go up for the services in the building inspection department, I think it'd be good to look at those to see, and it's likely you can actually come out kind of in a wash in some of that too.
Okay.
Debbie's pulling the permit numbers now, I think, from last year. See how
Oh, just
we had,
Williams?
yeah.
Of every type of
Yes, you're supposed to. Cause see, I was thinking leave building alone. Let's hit the sub permits and increase them.
We may be saying the same thing because I meant a very broad set. When you say sub, just,
Leave the building permit like it is and just hit the trades underneath it.
oh,
Cause we're so far off.
I meant the
Yeah.
whole section of page. So, and I don't have any recommendations to which ones or what amounts. So I'd leave that up to you as the expert. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I can see where a position like this is almost, as you say, almost self-absorbed anyway, because with the additional building and additional fees coming in, and so it's as needed, it
Yeah.
should in theory about pay for itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything else for me?
Any more discussion? Is the fee something we want to look at pretty quick, or we want to just kind of work them in the near future? What's your plan, Mr. Easton?
I mean, I think relatively quick would be good to look at them.
Okay.
depends then on what the recommendations are. We have to, pretty sure we have to do fees on a separate, there were some, when we did the fees last year, they had to be in a separately advertised something, right? Or was that only for the bad check?
The budget resolution.
Okay, I was thinking there was some fee we had to do separate. Okay. But
Let's get
that's
some,
got
research.
time. That's got some
We've
time.
got
We can always do
to-
it later too, if necessary.
we got the stuff to look over. We'll keep that in mind.
But Joseph, you're right. There are certain fees that you do have to advertise.
Yeah,
I think building is one, but we'll double check with Jeff.
Yeah.
I had forgotten about that.
Yeah, maybe it was just the one for the erosion and settlement. That might have been the one that had to be separate. Yeah. Easily $6,000 based on growth. Certainly growth and fee adjustments.
Like I said, it's just be as needed. That's why it's such a small number. You know, it's
Yeah.
Something we're going to allow them all the time.
And the amount for the existing Nottaway person coming in, that's already in the budget, like when they need to, or do they not charge? Because it's reciprocal between the
We help each other.
counties. Oh, that's good.
We feel for each other.
Thanks.
All right. That all you got?
Sir,
Thank you, sir.
thank y'all.
Thank you.
And look at that, we're right on schedule again.
Right on time.
Good, thank you.
Caught up.
Thank you.
All right, the next one is Mr. Llewellyn. He's going to speak on behalf of the fire department.
So I'm representing the fire department as treasurer again.
Congratulations.
So I guess y'all have the documents that Carla sent out. So I guess the additional funding that we, and this was voted on by the board, the fire board, is that we're asking for a increase in the local support line item from 80,000 to 120,000. And to raise the, and I guess where it is now is in the operating capital outlay, the fire department vehicles, from 500,000 to 550. So I can go into a little more discussion or explanation on kind of going through kind of this snapshot. I just kind of combine a lot of stuff to kind of give you a rough idea of where we stand as far as our ongoing expenses. So I guess the fire department's overall funding is unique because I guess we have a budget with you guys and then you give us money for, I guess, our own internal budget where we basically pay for our own operating expenses like truck repairs, telephone, fuel, the equipment we buy, equipment maintenance, stuff like that. So if we're just going down the snapshot, you can see I did basically the last 4-year average on what most of all of our expenses are. So the equipment / PPE depreciable, that's actually equipment above the one at the top is basically just small, I call them short life equipment that can be categorized with the account as far as an true asset. So these are the true assets that we buy and depreciate for a number of years. So the total that's in bold there is truly what we spend on a yearly basis for both operating expenses and for the equipment. As you can see, in 2018 and 2019, that's when we undertook replacing all of our SCBA air packs. So we split that over 2 years. And that in itself was nearly a $300,000 project. And so we were able to start that with the funding that we received from the board, I guess, starting in 2017. I think that's when we started the average of 500,000 a year. Because before that, I guess the funding was not consistent because one year we would ask 300,000 for a tanker, the next year would be 500,000 for an engine, then the year following would be 100,000 for a brush truck. So I think the goal with the board of supervisors at the time and the fire department was to have some consistency so that the budget every year would be fairly consistent. So the fire board, we met and actually came up with a 5-year average of the equipment cost. And during that initial, I guess, meeting, we set that the 5-year average was 440,000 a year, or whatever the 5 vehicles were at the time. And then we determined, based on historical equipment purchases and knowing that we had to replace big ticket items like air packs and our PPE, that we needed an additional funding for equipment. And so we added 60,000 to that 440 average per year. And that's where we got the 500,000. So we just didn't say 500 sounds good, but we actually calculated it out, and that's what it came out to be. So that's what we initially asked for, I believe in 2017. And then that's where we began doing this. So the years were like the first year, 2018 on here, the $104,000 that was left over after we bought the truck for that year. Basically, the county wrote the fire department a check at the end of the year. We put it in a special account, and then that's what we paid for the replacement of the SBA out of. And so you can see the following year, we were over for whatever truck. And so then the fire department basically pays the overage for that, basically so the county can have that consistent funding for us. And then basically it gives us some assurity that the truck is going to be there, and we know that we can go ahead and plan on future equipment purchases. So we haven't adjusted that 5-year average since the beginning. And as you know, things are going up, especially heavy vehicles, especially with the new DEF systems and some of the requirements that will be in the future. So with the upcoming vehicles, which is you can see on our apparatus replacement schedule, kind of this is the fleet that the fire department has as far as the year it was built, and kind of our age of replacement is typically the NFPA recommends for 20 years. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but even though mileages, you may have a truck that has 50,000 miles on it, but it may have 20,000 hours. So, and that's the thing, they're run hard and then they're put back, and you may not fire them up again for a day or two. So it's just hard on equipment. So I guess that's why the recommendation is there for 20 years. So going down to so recalculating the projected cost of the equipment for the next 5 years, the actual cost of the apparatus is $506,000 per year. So just the apparatus itself, we're over kind of what our current budget is. And if we try to maintain some funding for replacement of equipment and PPE, then that's kind of why now's the time to ask for that additional in the budget. And that's why we picked 550 just because we didn't want to do too much, and probably to kind of maybe keep it from going up so drastically at a time. If we do it every single year, then it may go 510 to 520. It may not be that much of a jump, but we just haven't recalculated the 5-year average since the beginning.
What did you say the 5-year average for this? 506,000? Is that?
506.
Okay. Sorry, I was calculating too, to make sure I understood where the number. Okay. Yeah.
So that, and along with, and like crunching the numbers, like I say, with this snapshot, it works out to where over the past 4 years, if you look at what we've actually, the average of what we received for the county, what we've had to pay overage for the truck has been around $55,000 is what we are getting above what the actual cost of the apparatus is. So we're pretty much on target as far as what we estimated how much the equipment was going to cost. So to kind of stay around that 50 to 55, so that's why 550, that's what the fire board went.
Let me make sure. I think we're looking at the same place on there. So for the last four years that you've got right there, where county gives 500,000 and you've got the actual amounts, 2 years are slightly above, 2 years very much below. If I summed those numbers there, it looks No, I'm sorry. I see, and I see how you got it. I
Yeah,
apologize.
I just basically, whatever the total is, basically plus or minus, I got 219
Okay, yeah, that is what I,
is overall with the fire department and divided by the 4 years, I've got 54,900.
okay, so that is what I, so basically the
that's-
county gave 219,000 more than what needed to be spent during those 4 years, because 2 years were pretty far under and the two other years were only a little bit above.
Right. So that,
Where does all that excess go?
well, the 55,000 per year, that was what we wanted to spend for equipment. So that's what's up here in this equipment PPE depreciable that's outside the operating expense.
Mhm.
So you see that going across there, the 156, 241, 55, 79, that's the equipment above what's technically in the operating budget. So that's where that money, the difference between the actual truck and the $500,000, that's where that money goes to fund the replacement of PPE.
Mhm.
And right now, just one set of PPE, just a coat and a pant is nearly $2,000.
Thanks, I appreciate you.
And so you can imagine NFPA recommends that the gear be replaced every 10 years. And so if we have 100 firefighters, then we should be replacing a minimum of 10 sets a year if you try to keep it in sequence. So that itself is 20,000 right there, just in that. But as stuff like extrication equipment and thermal imaging cameras, all that stuff does age out. And with new technology and stuff that we need to at least look into buying it. And some years we may have to save a couple of years because some of these are very expensive. Like one air pack is, just the air pack itself is nearly $6,000. So these are definitely expensive things that we use. So, and then this $80,000, which is basically the local support that the county writes a check to the fire department every year. Like I say, to cover all these costs, that hasn't been increased. I didn't go back and actually look the last time. I'm thinking it's been 8 or 9 years. And I think it was probably 60,000 before that, before it was increased. So we've been operating for a number of years without any increase there. Like I say, truck repairs, just that in itself is, in 2010 to 2015, we were averaging $25,000 a year on truck repairs. And now you can see last year was 47. So, and we do have various fundraisers. We do the rabies clinic and different other things. We apply for a grant through the forestry department every year, which is basically a 50-50 match. So we do the equipment that we know that we need anyway, like fire hose, foam and different things like that, that we go ahead and ask for that on the forestry grant just to basically get it for 50%. And so that's in there as well. So with all that, if y'all have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Yeah, a question probably for Carl. With the purchase of the truck, that big expense, is that something we could pull out of the capital improvements? Because that's a big expense, but it's also something that touch every citizen in the county. Is that a possibility?
We can purchase it from either. The reason, so we used to always, about 4 or 5 years ago, always make that purchase out of capital. But once it became a recurring $500,000 contribution, really, we put in operating because it was in every year. But currently it's coming out of the general fund and being reimbursed by the capital. So it's really being paid by the capital.
Okay.
So we could write the check from CIP, but in the end, it doesn't matter. It's being funded by CIP either way.
Okay.
It's kind
It's such a large purchase.
they made it a way to assure that the fire department would get the truck versus the capital improvements committee saying, oh, no, we don't think they need a truck this year. So it was kind of I think when they did all that the first time, that was kind of part of the deal. was we'll guarantee you can get the trucks you need, which, I mean, I gotta admit, it's amazing that Amelia funds those anyway, because there's a lot of counties that do not have the quality of equipment that we have. So that's a wonderful contribution.
We are very lucky. And I think these trucks are a year out too when you buy them. So sometimes there's some savings up front. So that's why I was just adding to the, maybe make sure we can use the capital.
And now to order a unit, it's anywhere from what I understand, a year to maybe 18 months before you receive it. So the thing is, let's go to order one now, it may not actually be paid for to the following fiscal year. But a lot of these companies, they'll give you a reduction when you order it. I think upwards of maybe $20,000 if you cut the check up front versus waiting to the end. So they already have that money, and they'll actually reduce that off of the cost of the truck. And that's why the fire department budget is, I guess, unique, because we're almost ordering the equipment on the promise that it will be funded next year. And I guess that's why the premise of this was created, because that's essentially what we were doing. So the years that the landfill revenues weren't that good, then we had to weigh the option of what stuff we were actually going to fund. And if the fire truck had to slide down the list a little bit, then it continued to delay it, because then you just had to order it later, which put it another year later. So
I don't doubt the value. I mean, it's critical service for all of us. I'm having a hard time following how the numbers are showing that there's a need to increase in the truck category when it's showing a surplus over the last couple of years, and the projections, as you said, for the next couple are at 506,000. So it won't even eat up nearly the surplus that's been over the last couple. That being said, I think it's pretty clear to me when I look at your numbers that the top half of the page, the non-truck expenses, I mean, as you said, those are going up pretty dramatically. You're seeing not really fully funding in that space. And as you said, I mean, I can't remember the last time that 80,000 what number was increased. Personally, I feel more comfortable increasing that, not the full 50,000, again, personal, but something in that. I can't make the numbers work out myself for the truck side.
well, if the truck side, if the 500, if you look at it, that 440 of it is the actual truck, and 60 of it is equipment. So that's what we're looking at. So if you take the difference there, and you got to take it over a average of 4 or 5 years. So if you take the average of the overage and underage, like we say,
Yeah.
and you get the 219 and divide that by 4, then that's $55,000 every year that we had to buy equipment. And that's what we did with it. So then we used the full $500,000 for those years. And so now,
Which is why I'm agreeing with you on that, which is why I think what you need is more money on the top part of that in the equipment and other things that you don't need to take the remainder money from your truck budget every time.
but if you flip it, so this is the 4 years in the past. So now if we go 5 years in the future, and that's where doing the recalculation of the 5 years in the future, the actual truck cost is 506.
Right.
Versus the actual truck cost in the 4 years in the past was 440. So the actual truck cost has gone up, you say $66,000, and we have added 60,000 on that to pay for equipment. So if you do the same thing here, then that would be 566 if you want to actually compare what's in the future to what was in the past, as far as how things were
You
calculated.
can buy a truck, you can't pay for any equipment.
Right. So if we went forward with, say, the 500,000, then the fire department would be paying 6,000 every year to the county to buy the truck. Plus we would be losing that additional revenue to pay to offset for the equipment that we've been buying as well.
Yeah, I understand.
Anybody else got any questions? Good. Thank you, sir.
All right.
All right, Daryl.
Really staying on time. It's 1:44.
Good afternoon. I'm here to answer any questions y'all may have on the role in that part-time position, the full-time position for custodial. I think Carla sent out the request yesterday. And just ask if y'all have any other questions on the budget for Public Works or Sanitary District.
I think that the full-time was for the extra space possible with the bank building.
Yes.
So we need extra manpower to clean.
Yes, it would be taking on additional 4,000 square feet of custodial and maintenance. But we don't anticipate a lot of maintenance since the building will be renovated when we go into it. So we did include the utilities for the electrical and water and sewer going into the new building. And the custodial piece was one thing that we needed to add to be able to take care of that.
What's the full number of the custodial staff now? Not just this one part-timer staff.
3 full, 1 part-time.
Okay.
They bring us to 4 full-time. And
When the clerk's new space becomes available in, like I said, projecting November, I know it's subject to change. Won't the current clerk space be offline for a while it's renovated then as well? I mean, so total square footage we are responsible for increases, but the total.
yeah, for a short period of time, but we also will be renovating inside the courthouse.
Right.
Which is gonna be more cleaning and stuff because we're in and out more with, dust and dirt and things like for the renovation, because we're gonna be renovating not just her space, but some other spaces to make the things work out like the judges wanted.
Yeah.
So we're anticipating where that person won't be actually cleaning in the clerk's office, but she will be having to take care of the dust and different things that's going to come with the construction in that area.
That makes sense. Thanks.
As well as you can't shut that building down to do that as well. It'll be a
Yeah, we'll have to work around
process, right? Work around it.
everything. Yeah, while that's going on.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I've just got one last question then, not related to the custodial, just fees. So we talked, have you looked through all of y'all's fees? I guess it's really the sanitary district fees for any possible changes. We've been changing those the last couple of years to try to keep it flat.
Right.
Pay for itself, we know, but to keep it flat, are you proposing some changes?
Not at this time, because we have the water meter replacement project and we want to see how that affects the bills as well, because as meters get older, they get slower. So there'll be some additional revenue captured when we switch to the new meters. So to keep from having a lot of increase at one time.
Do we have any estimate for that amount baked into the budget then?
I'm sorry, I was
No.
writing something else. I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, we didn't allow for anything like any of that.
Do you think there's an estimate you can safely make to put into it? You must feel confident enough there's an increase, or else you would, to not offset with fees.
Right. I can look into it.
I don't even know the number. I'm just saying, can you?
Well, it just depends because you know how much certain meters have obviously had more water go through it. So they're going to slow down faster than the meters that don't. So we would have to, it would be a shot in the dark to do that, but there will be additional revenue, but we can't say for sure right at this time.
Thanks.
And the fees that we've raised over the last few years have just about caught us up to covering the operating costs.
Yeah. Which is.
So we don't have to dip in. We have to dip in on the debt service side, but not the operating side, which that's where we were.
Yeah.
So we're pretty close to it. That's why we didn't do anything.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Anything else?
Any other questions?
Mhm.
Okay.
I see one line item was the professional services.
Mm-hmm.
Is that just testing and stuff like that? That went up quite a bit. Is that
That's engineering and
the stuff you
architectural. and
need
stuff
every
like
day and probably will go more with it?
that. Yeah. Which line is it? Which budget?
3160.
3150 in general properties,
3160.
3160.
Yeah. You got it?
You got it. We actually went down in general properties.
No, professional service.
Oh, professional service.
Yeah. Operating cost.
I may be looking at the wrong
Right
one.
there. Professional service.
We went down
It went down
10,000.
10,000, went down 5.
Yeah, 5,000. We went from 15 to 5,000.
Okay,
What'd you call out?
I looked at it wrong. It's my fault.
All right.
We did go up in maintenance because we're having to replace a lot more units on like at the courthouse. Those units are getting older and they're dropping like flies right now. So we just replaced one. We're getting ready to replace another one that waiting for it to come in.
Okay.
So with professional services, we dropped that because a lot of our project, a lot of that service comes with the project like the Wells Fargo building. That architectural fees is in the project itself and not in the budget. So.
Okay.
Right.
Thanks.
All right.
Looking with your meter project, are you able to get the meters?
No, that's what we're waiting on.
That's what, yeah.
They told us they thought they'd have them by March, but it's looking more like it'll be July before we actually get them on the ground now. So.
I know it'll free up some manpower for you as well. Save a lot of time.
Mhm.
Before you leave, can you speak on the capital improvements about the I&I study and the thing you wanted to do for that?
No, we're just looking, I think you've all seen the numbers of where the I&I goes up, when rain events or whatever. So we're looking to figure out where that's coming from. And then once we figure out where it's coming from, we'll come back with another project to
Fix it.
fix it, yeah. Unless it's something simple, we can go ahead and take care of, but if it's something big like line replacements or manhole replacements, which we know there will be some manhole replacement, but once we identify the target areas, then we can focus on trying to get that number down so we can decrease the flow during the rain event.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
I'm good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman, I'm so bad to go down to the field days meeting.
Yes, sir, thank you.
But I'll be back.
Ms. Cohen?
Afternoon, everybody. How you doing today?
Good.
Good, good. So I'm here today to request some salary increases for my 3 positions in the office. The increased volume of the amount of building permits, business licenses, everything has gone up dramatically. So I'm here to see if we can get them brought up to what I feel as is a good, fair request. And just need to know if y'all got any questions.
How does this compare to the Baker Tilly study? I even hate bringing it up, but does it get them out of the range that we did for all that?
This brings them, they were originally placed into the pay grade of 6 and 5, I believe. Yes, 6 and 5. My request is moving them to the 5 and the 7, but this would be the midpoint, I believe. So bringing my, as you can see, my deputy 1, whose minimum salary according to the state should be 30,502, which was the minimum set on the salary study for a grade 5 for our deputy one. I just feel like these positions need to even come up a grade, and I mean, I'd like for them to be brought up to the midpoint. I feel like their worth and their value that they provide on a day-to-day basis to the citizens of this county, I mean, they should be treated as fair as possible. And their current salaries seem to be pretty low, especially considering the average midpoint that the study gave the results compared to the other localities.
Okay.
But it's right much more than what Baker Tilly recommended in total, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's. And you're still pending decision on joining the personnel policy, which would have automatically moved them up to the Baker Tilly recommended amounts.
Yes, and per your suggestion, I met with HR and it was not. It was only going to get my deputy to $170. My chief is already over according to the salary study, so she wouldn't get anything but the 0.5% for her service over the 5 years. And my newest deputy one, she wouldn't get anything.
Let's just make sure I understand, but so it would bring them to what Baker Tilly recommended. It's just not always an increase. Right? Could you say, but it would coming on to personnel policy, we will then push people to the Baker Tilly recommended amounts if that's higher than what they're currently making. So, but that's exactly, yeah, that's what we did.
And there were many that didn't receive a raise.
Right. It doesn't mean everybody's getting a raise because many people, like what we went into the study thinking a lot of the employees were under what they should be. But fortunately came out of the study finding that most county employees were not under or very, very little under. So you're right. It doesn't guarantee everybody gets an increase, but if anyone's lower than the recommended amounts, they would move up. Yeah.
I mean, a lot has changed since we even filled out those PAQs. I mean, a whole lot of stuff. The workload in itself has just increased dramatically. I mean, the foot traffic, since everything's opened back up, people are coming in more. The phone, you know, they're the face for the county. Everybody calls the treasurer's office for everything. The DMV, where's the DMV? Is the DMV open? You know, who do I talk to about my utility bill? Where can I get a plat? Where can I get a concealed carry permit? So it's just, I mean, they're in the face. They're here trying to do everything that they can. And I just want them to be valued as much as anybody else.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
I'll hit on my general one and ask everybody about the fees then. So I was just in to your office paying a fee for my son's new puppy. I was actually pretty surprised. I've obviously seen it in here, but when you go and make the transaction and how low those fees are. Again, our theory on fees has been trying to offset the cost to the county. And keep seeing pretty significantly increasing costs for animal control, which is what these fees are supposed to, I mean, and we're nowhere near compensating, you know that, yeah. Nowhere near compensating for the costs in that. Has there been any looking, probably maybe between you and animal control around the cost or for the animal and dog fees?
No, and I do believe, this is my first rodeo with that. They were all upped when the lifetime went by for my predecessor. Carla, do you remember? Is that something the board sets or is it something animal control sets?
The board ultimately sets it.
We usually been getting recommendation. Yeah, we have to make the change for all of them, but.
I do know that they're pretty much right in line with other localities. A lot of them just don't even offer any of them except for the lifetime anymore. A lot of them don't even have the $5 spay neuter. It's just $10, yay or nay, either way. The kennel seems to be the highest amount that we process. Got a lot of hunting clubs around here, so.
$35 and $50.
Well, I mean, if you have recommendations to streamline it like that, I mean, you see it every day. If there's things like that, you think that it looks like people are moving away from, I mean, definitely bring it to our attention because we obviously don't know.
Yeah.
You know, I'm more than willing to listen to you, like we did with the decals.
Yeah,
You know, things
yeah.
like that. I mean, you see this all the time.
I mean, the state says we have to have them, so, because it's a state duty kind of thing when it comes to the dog tags. But as far as I know, I mean, just even the amount of time that it takes to even get in all the certificates from the rabies clinics or the vet's offices, I mean, because we get them from, if you got your, you know, your pet with you in Charlottesville and you decide to get a rabies certificate, they've got to send it to us.
Right.
So then we have to process it, track it down, find you, send you a letter, a postcard saying, hey, you got to come get your dog tag. And then, so we do that on a monthly basis. And then after the fact, every year when I have to actually order the tag. So it's not really bringing in anything as far as animal control. So it's like it's coming in and going right back out.
So that's exactly my point. It's costing us as much to do it as we get. And yeah, we're not making anything for the purpose that it's originally intended for.
I mean, I'm willing to get with other treasurer's offices and find out, you know, exactly what their fees are. And how do they increase those? I mean, I don't know. We got a lot of complaints now. I can't believe we got to come get a dog tag. Well, then we have to explain. It's not a county thing. It's a state thing. We have to do what the state says. So
Well, Dinwiddie last year was $10 because I get that one every year because I'm in Ford.
Mhm.
one dog though, or do they have multiple
Well,
things?
No, they'll give you a kennel license and all that, but it's 25 and 50. So what it was last year, I think. About the same as here.
But as far as I know, the lifetime, when the board decided a while ago to do the lifetime, was just set at 20 and 40 and that was it. So the other three, the kennels and the regulars have not been increased.
Because if you eliminated to what you're saying about recommendations of kind of moving forward in that, if you eliminated the annual one, you would cut down on the work volume a lot on that too. So,
Yes, we're pushing nonstop on the lifetime.
yeah.
And the citizens seem to like it because, hey,
Oh, it's.
the less often they gotta come
You
up
still
here.
got to check your rabies certificates every year.
Still gotta check
Yeah.
every single
You
rabies
still gotta do
certificate,
the
still
rabies
gotta notify them if they haven't been purchased.
Right.
But if they got the lifetime, we'll check it theoretically in 3 more years, because that's when they'll get their pet's 3-year vaccination.
Right. Yeah.
But that's the same as doing the regular. Still a 3-year.
True.
cycle. But I mean, you still have to check it whether they do lifetime or not.
Yeah.
So it's still time.
Yeah. A little bit even irregardless of what the rest of the counties do. I mean, I think we owe it to our citizens to make sure we're not subsidizing one area with another unless it's really intentional. They're super cheap. They don't even cover your costs hardly.
And or animal control, so I charge the postage to him on them bad boys, but thankfully it's a postcard, so
Right.
it's a little less.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions as far as the actual line items go in there? I had to keep my handicap door in there because I've not gotten it yet, so. Caller suggested go ahead and roll it over just in case it wasn't here before the end of the cycle.
Your collection rate, how was that on the state average? It looked pretty good.
98% for real estate and 94% for personal property.
How does that compare around the rest of the state?
Not really sure.
We looked at it about a year ago and you were, like you were saying, it was pretty good. You were in certainly the top end of it. I know you've been, really doing a good job on the auctions and all of that. Yeah, that's the other thing. We should look at how it had gone up pretty dramatically.
Yes, and a lot of that, I believe, is due to the real estate auctions. There was a period of time where they were not getting done in a sufficient manner. And now here we are getting ready to come up on a third one. So I've been real happy with the way that's gone. It just takes a lot of time, court proceedings, seeing what the citizens have to say if they, go to the judge. I never received anything. Well, yeah, you did. So.
Okay, what is the comp board doing this year as far as raises for comp board employees?
It's been proposed a 5% raise for state employees, which would, if passed, I would get 5% on my total comp board salary, and Wanda would get 5% on her comp board salary, which is 31,998. And then the rest she gets local, so she'll only get that 5% if passed on that salary.
Okay.
We were hoping we would know something before now, but apparently it could be May 1st before we know for sure.
Okay.
And you've still got baked into this 7%.
I do.
And-
10% is included, but it's a revenue and an expense because it goes directly to the constitutional salaries.
Right, that was my, yeah, so if someone's gonna get 5% from the state, they still get the total 7, basically we're making up the 2. I mean, you have some accounting where you have to move the money, but they're getting a total of 7% increase, right?
Not on the bottom line. We're giving 5% on the state portion of their salary and 7% on the local portion of their salary. So it works out to somewhere between 5 and 7%, depending on the breakdown.
Okay, I didn't look at that, that's not quite what I was thinking.
It ended up being split right in the middle. So they get 6 instead of the full, like 7.
Yeah, because then they're kind of penalized that they're a comp board
Comp board
position where someone who's fully funded local gets a full 7%.
We've had with the chairs.
If you want to change the way it's funded, if you want to give a lower COLA, if you want to put that COLA on the bottom line, if you want to give everybody flat 7, I've got all the scenarios ready for you. Because this is a topic every year.
Yeah, and that's why I'm just gonna pause on it, because I need to go back and look at my notes from last year.
My 2 deputy positions would not get the 5% because they're not state funded. They're only local funded.
Okay.
So they're built into the
They would
budget,
get
getting a
the
7%.
7, they would get the 7.
of their bottom line.
All right, anybody else?
Stephanie, I still think there could be some money savings in putting the DMV office in your office. I mean, I know it's been talked about before, but that's a way to pay employees more for, as well as save money. Because then they're doing 2 duties and you're not paying 2 separate entities to do 2 duties. I know it's been talked about. Have you thought about it anymore, or would you like to talk about it at some point, or?
Maybe I would like to talk with my people first about that.
Right, or figure out how to crunch the numbers and see what kind of savings.
I mean, this is about them, them to me. This is, we're a team. It's not just they come to work and work for me every single day. We're a team. We make decisions together. We do things together as far as helping the citizens, trying to get the citizens, what they need to. So I would like to consult with them before I say anything further about that.
Right. I mean, if you even could have the capacity to do it.
That would be another thing. Equipment, space, there would have to be some renovations. We already knew that going in the beginning, talking of all that, so. I mean, I'm open to all kinds of options. I mean, I feel like that's what this budget process is about. Let's talk about it. I mean, there's lots of things that can be put on the table.
Okay, anybody else have anything?
I just think it's good she's looking out for her people. She's not asking for anything. Well, tells you a little bit of something.
It does, and I appreciate that.
Thank
I think that's where, I think that's what we're all doing. I'm glad you're doing that too. Whatever we spend, we got to look out for the citizens as well, because it comes out of their pocket. So I know, it's a tough balance.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Y'all have a good afternoon.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, moving on. Anybody get a break and think we good? All right, Ms. Wash.
I've been needing a break.
Good afternoon. So I am here today to ask for $44,802 more. That would be for an increase in salaries for the 3 deputies that I already have, as well as bringing in a new position for only part of the year because my oldest employee, or the longest one here, maybe I should word it that way, she will be retiring. So I would like to bring somebody in to kind of train them before she leaves. That way there's less of a noticeable turnover for the citizens and they'll have a little bit of footing under them before she just is gone. So the increase of 44,802 for this year would actually drop next year by 29,000 because I would be cutting that other position out.
You lost me on that one. Can you say that one again?
Yes, so the increase includes for 3 people that are already here getting raises. And then I would bring in another person, but it would only be for half of that fiscal year.
Okay, gotcha.
So then when the other person retires, we'll drop back down.
Training process.
Right.
And how are these aligned with what Baker Tilly recommended?
These are all one step above what Baker Tilly put them in for. And based on knowledge of the duties of other positions and what we do and the certifications that are required, I feel like this is the right place for them to be. I'm not asking for the max for anybody except for my deputy that's been here for 27 years. And I mean, she's only looking at another year here. So then we would get savings back when she leaves. Everybody else I have either between the midpoint or the minimum and the midpoint. And last year, by correcting a bunch of errors and going after a lot more equitable enforcement, we brought in an additional $984,000 of revenue, which equates to $246,000 more per person. I'm sure y'all can imagine that takes a lot more effort. So I feel like, based on the extra work we're doing, it's warranted.
All right, anybody got any?
Yeah, I got one question I ain't never get answered and I keep forgetting to ask you. What is the annual leave, the 9185? Why is it a one-time hit?
That would be for when the employee retires.
Okay.
That's just at the worst case.
Part-time deal?
Right. Well, that's when she retires. That's what she has on the book. So that's the worst case scenario. Right now, she's not planning on using or not getting paid for all of her leave. She's planning on using at least half and maybe 3/4. So that would actually be less. But I mean, if something happened and she left today, that's the worst case.
Good deal.
Good. All right. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's the question that Todd had about that. That is a pretty large sum. I understand where Tom would come from, but if it's not the most likely scenario, then it feels like maybe we shouldn't budget on the worst case scenario, but budget on the most likely in this case. I mean, we've had excess funds in other places every year. I don't know. That's your domain, but that feels like a lot of extra money to put in there. And then if it's not used for that, it's available for anything if it's put into the Commissioner Revenues budget. Whereas if it's held and we need to use extra and it comes from the general funds, there's more control in that space.
I didn't realize that those kind of funds weren't already pre-budgeted. Like if an employee quits at any given time, where would that money come from if it's not budgeted?
So when I send out the original budget letter, I do ask that department heads keep that in mind. They know in their department who's going to retire and to budget for that. Many
So-
times people don't.
Assumingly, it's normally not,
The dates of people.
it's normally not a significant amount like that either, I guess,
Correct.
typically.
She's been here forever.
Yeah.
That's-
She's being paid out of the max.
Yeah.
But if not, then yeah, we can lower it.
Or it can come from a general fund. It doesn't have to come directly from the Commissioner of Revenues. Because by putting it in there, it also then inflates her budget. Looks like she just got a lot more money.
Right, it's gonna make.
And I don't want it to look negative on her. And then, next year it looks like it's coming back down. It's a little bit like you talk about the fire truck. If
Right,
you budgeted even that same amount, but you just budgeted under central, instead of COR.
Technicalities, because the auditors are completely against just for the audit report, all expenses need to be in a department.
Yeah, I get that.
But
Yeah.
in the end, we'll have to reallocate it to a department.
But then you're reallocating on an actual versus theoretical number. Yeah. I think it's just something to consider then.
Is it the same rate and across the board? If somebody leaves, they get paid out the same?
No, it's based on their hourly rate. So this would be that specific employee's hourly rate times however many hours she has. Like under the personnel policy, our max payout would be, I know it's 240 hours when you're here up to 5 years, but she's been here longer. I think it's.
But she's not under the personnel policy.
Right.
So how does that work? I know. So how does that work though?
I'm not sure what. So I'm assuming they have their own policy and they would just send over a letter when that should be processed through payroll saying, pay her out for this many hours at this rate to equal this. So when I say it's a shot in the dark,
She told us last year that they don't have their own personnel policies.
I took it to be it's her vacation time, sick day buildup. The way I took
It is, it is, but what she's saying is the county has a cap.
they have a cap.
By not falling under our personnel policy,
Yeah, it could be unlimited cap.
there's no rules to it.
Yeah.
Paid out 500 hours and she has it. I'm not, they get to make their own.
That's the problem. I know, Todd, you and I have talked about this some, but that's the problem with people not falling under the personnel policy. If we increase their salaries, there's no limits then to everything else they can get. So they could have a much higher limit on carryover balances for vacation and sick. They could have more vacation and sick time generally granted per year. They could have more holiday time. They could have a different calculation for overtime. To keep it all fair is why we want that to come to the personnel policy. But this is a great example. That's a huge amount of money we're talking about right here. That's unregulated.
It's a shot in the dark. It really-
Unregulated.
90,000 at $30 an hour, that's a 3,000 hours.
Yeah.
And you're talking about a cap of,
Is 90,000 what's in it?
No, it was 9,000.
9,000.
oh, 9,000.
9,000.
I thought you said 90.
9,000.
I'm sorry, I misheard you.
I misheard you too.
Concept was 99.
Concepts are all still the same. The amount's different.
Can I just clarify that, yes, the treasurer's office does have a personnel policy.
Good.
And it follows right along the line of what the county already has.
Good.
So we do have something that we do follow.
Good. Can you send that to us afterwards so we can look at any differences and understand? Thanks.
9185.
So has a policy.
9185.
Oh,
I
that's,
think I assumed you meant 91,000.
I did too.
9185. Somebody got to go.
I got you.
Hey, Laura.
Good
Oh,
topic.
well, good then.
Yeah. Hey, Laura,
Where it was going, I was thinking.
we were discussing the payout on annual leave.
Yes.
I didn't know you had left the room, so that's probably, because we're discussing your department. Does anybody have any more questions about that?
I think so we were trying to talk about how the annual leave payout's calculated. We didn't have a copy of your personnel policy, so we don't know what the calculation is. So Stephanie's gonna send hers. Would you send your personnel policy?
Sure.
Thank you. That was the one.
Okay.
Thank you.
That'd be 2 years of built up time.
That's what I was, okay. Yeah, I didn't want to question.
And it is a different rate for leave, particularly. Was it all one?
I don't know.
We don't know what they have,
Pay for sick leave.
No, there we go.
but we don't know what they do.
This office has their own kind of policy, like social services has a different policy.
Mhm.
They get to set it. And I don't have copies of it, but
And there's all the problems. There's all the same, yeah, all the problems we're talking about.
Because the check comes from Amelia County.
Correct.
Mhm.
And we are responsible to the citizens for how the money is spent.
Well, what are we doing now?
All right.
Instead of dead space. So we're taking a break,
That was your break.
2:45.
Need a break? We can take a break. I mean, I don't see.
We're way ahead.
Sarah's not here anyhow.
We're way ahead. Is there any chance of calling the schools to like,
I'll take over here if you want.
can anybody move up earlier? We can take a break still, but like, we're gonna be sitting.
Let's take about a 10-minute or 5-minute break and then we'll.
How do you,
All the others until the.
just hit stop?
No, just mute it. Let it continue. Um, You continue, you continue.
First. Let's be second.
Good,
Good to go?
all right. Back from our little recess. All right, Ms. Steele.
Okay, so I'm not gonna go through everything, but there were a couple of pretty steep increases on my budget, so I just want to speak to those. For professional services, last year, we had asked for 22,000. Some years we don't ask for anything, but that was for ongoing projects like the ordinance update, stuff like that. You'll see that I requested 80,000 for this year because it has been brought up wanting to redo the comprehensive plan. I looked back and in 2017, when we did a comp plan update, it was $67,000. So I put 80 in there just because we know prices are rising and wanted to have a little bit of a buffer.
We have to redo that at a certain speed. Would
Yes.
this be accelerating that?
It would be by 1 year.
Oh.
By 1 year, it'd be, yeah, so we would have to do it next year. So this is 1 year early. And then a slight increase for fees for planning commission members. We're meeting more regularly. So we need, so that 6,050 will allow for 11 out of 12 meetings as opposed to, I think it was like 8 they had in there.
So they're one of the few committees that actually gets any kind of compensation. Do we know why that they do, but the other committees don't?
I'm not sure.
I've wondered that before, if it's a state mandated thing or.
And it might be because, I mean, I guess most of the committees aren't mandated by the state, and this does have a Code of Virginia section requiring it. So maybe,
Would you mind
Yeah.
see if that is required?
I know electoral board and social services will have committees receive,
They're the only,
but they're the only others.
okay. Yeah, I can check into that and I'll talk to Jeff too and see if it is. Okay.
since the other two aren't here, Carl, do you mind checking on those two as well?
Yeah, I will.
Okay, so dues, associations, membership and travel increased a little bit this year because I need to do my AICP, which is like the CPA of planning, like your official accreditation. So that's a little bit costly. So that's in there as well. Okay, so that's all the big changes with the budget. I am requesting, well, my department and the environmental department, but just for ease of logistics, it would all be funded under the Department of Community Development. For a code compliance officer, they would do all zoning complaints, solid waste ordinance complaints. The issue is, since we've gotten these new ordinances, which are great, our complaints have skyrocketed. We're getting them left and right. And Crystal and I just can't
You don't have.
handle all of
time.
them. And while Patty is still here, we're probably okay because there's 3 of us. So I know the budget's pretty tight this year. So even if we can't get it immediately funded in July, including benefits and everything, it was 56,000, and that's putting the base salary at 40,000. We ran it through the Baker Tilly safe assessment tool, and it was between like 32 and 45. But if we could just maybe get it for January 1st to start hiring, so about half of that 56, that would even be helpful. We just need some help and help with erosion and sediment control because the solar farms require a lot of time for inspections and reporting.
And there's enough work to keep them busy full time.
Yes, because they would pick up some of the zoning things that I do in planning. And we could have someone, a lot of counties have people going to actually check setbacks before they build. And that would be great if we could do that because we run into issues. So this person, there are a lot of things that we aren't able to do as much just because we don't have the manpower that this role could help out with,
And I could.
or even part-time.
There would be some citizen benefit, not just the,
Right, and they could help
Side.
answer zoning questions when people
Right.
call and when they come in and things like that.
or go to your locality and.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But that's all I have. Does anybody have any other questions?
Yeah, how about the zoning permit fee? We're gonna look at that, right?
Okay, so we had discussed, so the only thing in community development / our office suite in general that does not have a fee assigned to it is the zoning permit. So that is what everyone has to fill out before going to get a business license. So that currently is free, but we are doing a significant amount of them. Probably at least 10 a week of those. So we had discussed if
we wanted to attach a fee to that as well. Of something nominal, probably like $25 or maybe even $10, but just something to capture that because between Debbie and I, we do spend a pretty good chunk of our time doing those.
Is that a one-time fee the first time they get a business license, or they have to keep doing it like every year?
The business license is separate. The zoning form, they'd only have to do once,
Okay.
just at the beginning, and then they can renew their license every year with that same zoning permit. So this would be a one-time fee.
Not a zoning request, it's just a zoning, their current zoning matches what they want to do.
Exactly. So that the commissioner's office can be sure that they're not giving a business license to someone who's trying to do something where it's not allowed. So they come to us first and then go.
All other counties charge. We don't.
Yeah.
We should.
That's a 15 or 20-minute research
I
investment
That's,
typically.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's not a big moneymaker, but it's something.
Right.
Well,
If you get enough little ones, they add up. That's right.
Line,
yeah, and I know it's not like a broken record, but we're not trying to make money with fees. We're trying to cover our costs, and like you're
Offset
saying,
costs.
and that's not covering the costs. What about some of these other, I mean, I know you took a couple other ones last year from free to
Mhm.
fees, but I mean, they're really small fees.
They are.
Are they covering costs, you think, for the rest of these?
The only ones that the subdivisions, all of those, yes, no issues. The ones that do get a little bit dicey are rezoning fees and special exception permits. The reason being is that we, essentially all that covers is our postage for sending out neighbor letters and the advertisements. But if they continue to defer, or I have to send out several rounds of letters, that increased advertising costs and letter costs, postage costs. So those, I don't know that we've broken even on certain projects. Some projects don't come close to using that, but then others far exceed that.
I wonder if you're allowed to charge when the requester chooses to defer, which is what you're saying is
And
cost.
I think Jeff has mentioned that before, that we can pass those costs along to them after what's standard, once for planning commission, once for the board.
Right.
But if it's something they're choosing to push back, then we could move those costs along to them.
We could at least look at what the possibility is.
Okay.
When you said subdivision, so you're talking about all these ones that say like plat.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. All those are good.
Sign permit, like $25, is that?
That's plenty. We probably only get
That's
4 or 5 of those a year.
like a big sign.
It's not like the ones you put in your yard. It's just like the new Dollar General just applied for one today. So large business signs.
Sure it complies with the town.
Exactly.
Well, right.
Yep.
Okay.
but doesn't that fall under the building permit too? Because it's a,
So they might, yes, it's 2 separate permits though. So I do the sign permit, but we'll just stick with Dollar General. They also have to get a building permit too for like the electrical work and
Yep.
all that stuff. Yeah, so they will have to get 2 permits.
If it's lighted.
Yes.
If it's a regular sign. just to
Some
get a
signs they
sign.
don't have to, and they'll get permits to just reface signs like Amelia Overhead Doors did, but they weren't changing. So they didn't have to get a building permit, but they did get a sign permit.
Gotcha. Thanks. So you're gonna take a look at the zoning permit fee and the possibility of fees for postponing.
Yes, and paying planning commissioners.
Yeah.
Yep. Anything else?
Yeah, we've done in about 10 minutes.
Huh?
We've done about 10.
I don't even need 10. 5 is fine.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
thank you.
Thank you.
I called Marilyn Wilson on the break and she said she would be here in 15 minutes, which means any minute now.
How did we miss Ricky? Or did he get moved back or something?
So the sheriff's office I hadn't laid eyes on it, but a great presentation, like sounded amazing. And then they lost all their data and Raina has had to recreate it. And she was like, I will be working on this up to the minute. So they're probably gonna right at 3:05. They needed the extra time.
That's good.
Don't be here. With Ricky, I was. Yeah. I just know. Yes.
Yeah.
Because it was everything.
I mean, from what I heard.
Well, I can add something while we're waiting. All right, since I presented the budget, two changes I'm gonna have to make is, well, three changes. One of them is great. The other two are more expenses. So at the last regular board meeting, we funded the full-time position for the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. So that will add 48,000 to, so I'm gonna go ahead and add that to take it from part-time to full-time. The other one is Taylor had gone to a Piedmont Regional Jail meeting, and they gave their best estimate of Amelia's cost, and it looks like it's right at 100,000 higher than what I had guessed. So I'm gonna have to add $100,000 to Piedmont Regional Jail's estimate. But we can also add the $375,000 federal grant that we just received into the CIP budget. Because that's where those expenses are coming from. So I'm gonna make those three changes automatically unless y'all have any objection to it.
That 48,000, that was a little bit less than what Lee had.
Well, that's the net increase. The salary is gonna be 59,000. But then, you add the
You had
net
that
for that, but you
part-time.
take out the part-time,
Gotcha. Thank you.
just the net increase.
When are we discussing the CIP projects themselves, though? I mean, we
I
haven't
was
been,
gonna ask that. It was
I
one of
think it's gonna be next month, next,
next week's meeting.
okay. We only had 2 hours on the calendar, I think, though. Is that right? We gotta go through, we gotta make decisions on everything that came through today, plus do all the deciding on the CIP.
I expect we're gonna have
We'll do another meeting.
another meeting.
I would suspect.
Have to, maybe two.
Or you can make the next meeting or start earlier and or another meeting.
I think the next meeting ought to start a little earlier.
I think I'm fine with that.
Rather have more time than be pushed.
It was the 29th.
I would too.
It's Tuesday next week.
Yep.
3 to 5, they had it down.
Gonna do another 1 to 5. You think it's necessary?
I'd rather have that time. We can always leave early. I'd rather have the time than not.
I think that's a fair point.
If it's just us, I mean, when it's not other.
Do we got anybody else will come in next week?
I mean, I guess they're allowed to because it's a public meeting, but I don't have.
You come in, Rain. It's
Well, when we talk about it,
So you're
right time, do we want to change it? It's kind of close to change this one.
good.
Yeah, I'm just saying any future ones, I prefer it. If it's just us when we're not inviting departments, I mean.
I was thinking around April 7th. Was that? We got the 29th, then the following week.
As long as you leave enough time for the advertising, and that's, I'm sure Carla will look at it, but that's real close to.
Now, there's always the option of having the public hearing on a separate date than the meeting. It's just
Yeah.
very easy to have it on the meeting date.
It is.
If we wanted to keep it on at the April meeting, that would be April 20th, which means we'd have to advertise it really not the week prior, but the week before that, because the paper's dated as a Thursday. So
The week of
it's to the Monitor by the 4th.
We're kind of close.
Actually be out of town, so I was gonna try to get it to them by the 1st. But I mean, there's always the option of having the public hearing on a separate night if we need to.
What day of the week is our next month?
All right, you lost me. What are we talking about? Are we talking about another meeting? Are we talking about extending next Tuesday?
If we need another one, or do we want to extend next Tuesday?
Well, I mean, I'm thinking when we get together Tuesday, that gives us Wednesday, Thursday, Wednesday and Thursday if we need to meet again.
Correct.
It gives us 2 more days before the 1st.
Yeah, but how you gonna advertise it?
She said she just has to have it in by the 4th, but she'd like to have it in on the 1st because of because of her going on vacation.
Right.
So we would still have enough time as long as we're in March, we have enough time.
Right.
It's got to be run through the monitor by the week of the 7th.
So why don't we meet on the 29th and then
Okay.
tentatively the 30th, the next day, we can do a night meeting if we need to.
I think that's fine. Just continue.
Just to confirm up a few things and make sure we're good.
All right, sounds good to me.
Mhm.
7-ish, if.
Yeah.
The 30th at 7.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about it later. We got people waiting.
Yeah, I need to talk to Taylor.
We'll confirm that.
We got a meeting that day with Southside and Chesterfield and all that starts here.
During the day.
Yeah, but I don't know how late it's gonna go.
Okay.
I'm waiting on Marilyn. Pam is hiding back in the corner from the rescue squad if anyone has any questions. She's not on the docket, but if anybody needed her. I didn't know if they were trying to be anonymous, but they might not have any questions.
Too late. She can come talk now.
Yeah, we pointed her out now.
She doesn't have like a presentation or anything, but. No, not at all.
So they didn't have any additional requests, though. Flat budget.
We did remove,
You come on up here. You can have a seat with.
sorry. We did actually remove 25,000 from our request on the UTV.
Oh.
We were trying to push through with that on a grant, and just didn't feel like we had enough time to pull it together. We really wanted to include fire and it be a county resource instead of a squad resource. Fire really has, I think Sean would agree, more of a need for it than we do, and Kent for search and rescues. So we've decided to just scratch that for now and see where we could go a bit later. And then David, I know you had a question about the 4-wheel drive truck.
Yep.
That is our new ambulance that will be delivered in 2 weeks. That was purchased with CARES funding. So we're very excited. First free ambulance ever. And that is the personal property tax that's anticipated for it.
Okay.
So it's not any expense for the truck itself. It's for the anticipated taxes that'll be.
I was thinking it was a pickup, but it's, I know the new ambulance is 4-wheel drive. Gotcha.
Yeah. Yep, we're
It's
very,
not a truck.
it is
I
not,
was told it was a truck to pull the UTV.
no.
Okay.
It is an ambulance. It is gorgeous. We just checked it out last week. And also, if y'all hear that we were in Florida, a couple of us were to inspect it. That was included with the purchase of the unit. 0 funds were used for that trip. So just to go ahead and nip that in the bud now if you see something.
No truck.
So I think that was the only thing that I needed to clarify on it. It is a $53,000 increase over what we requested from you guys last year. It's about 8% increase. Our costs are going up 10 to 25% this year. And I think it puts us in with about 55% support from the county, 40 to 45 from ourselves. And I don't know if you guys received our budget or not. It actually looked like we came in at a net of 39,000 last year. That's because we paid our providers late from the November bill. So we actually came in at a loss of 26,000 last year. The November bill was not paid until January 19th because we could not figure out how in the world we had a surplus. We didn't. It was just.
Just timing of bill.
Yeah. So I think that's where we're at. Any questions?
No, I'm good. Thanks. Thanks for
Thank you,
stepping up.
guys.
So we didn't see you back here.
I got it in front of me.
We can. I just, Marilyn would probably be a lot quicker than us.
Well, they're here. They're here, though.
Oh,
She's high.
there.
whole thing. You better swap the hill.
Oh, take your time.
Thanks for coming early.
Oh, gosh.
Right next to trouble.
Face to face. Okay. You think we'll take one more here, just.
I've given them your memo. I guess you can just summarize and
Yeah.
see if they have questions.
Yeah, pretty much just reiterating everything I said in the past. Basically, I'm talking about salaries. I think everything else is self-explanatory. Didn't ask for a whole lot of things different in the other budget. But if you don't mind, I'll give you a copy of. Like I'm just basically talking about the salaries of my employees. And just one example, I'm gonna use my chief deputy, which hers is more significant, less than everyone else. So that's why I'll use this for an example, if you would. If you don't mind accepting a copy, these are salaries. I've highlighted the salaries for just an example of all the other chief deputies in the other offices. And just to show you how significantly lower just my chief deputy clerk is than the others, just locally. And basically, that's what I'm here for you to take that into consideration. Even when you look at the length of time she's been employed compared to the others, I mean, it's significant. And compared to her job, she does everything I do when I'm not there. So she's my chief deputy, and her responsibilities are great. And the salary, just compared to everybody else, is just significantly lower. And I'm just here to plead with you, if you all will consider, if none other, just, that one.
I don't have the amounts from the salary study in front of me. Are those aligned with the amounts that Baker Tilly was recommending? They had some recommended changes for yours too, if I recall. Right.
Yeah, but from what I remember, it was very little.
Okay, that's fine. That's okay.
Yeah,
So
it was very
more than what their recommendations were. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Are they,
basically, yeah,
are any of these comp board personnel?
well, yeah, all comp board.
100%?
One.
Anybody else?
Well, all of them, but that's usually the most significant. I just use this for an example instead of,
Okay.
and I really didn't know who else to compare the others to with that
Okay.
list. But that's why I put her at in Pacific, because she's the most significant one, yeah.
Any other supervisors have any questions?
Just gives me more reading material.
Okay. And I would greatly appreciate it. She's a great employee. And to lose her, it would be a drastic. So that's my plea today.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
I don't know if you had any questions about any other increases everything else is very little as far as the increases, unless you have a question.
I see the fees for jurors, is it just more jury trials or?
Yes. Gosh, I've got I don't know why so many jury trials. I got 4 set up this month. Sometimes during the year, past years, we only have like 4 or 5 during the whole year. But last month, I think we had 2. And for the summer, we've got, I know 5, 6 set up already through June. Now, whether they all come forward, they'll counsel before trial or not, but a lot of them will come to trial and then they'll decide to do a plea during trial. But once those jurors come in, we have to pay them. They're there.
Right, yeah.
So,
You keep the 30 you owe me. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it doesn't really quite even make up for it anyway, does it?
No, I do it for free.
Oh,
I do it for free.
okay. All right.
I'm good.
I'm Jim.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Listening. All right. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. It's easy back down the hill now. It's getting slick out there. Yeah, it's getting slick.
All right, we had the sheriff's department. Fine, I just kind of stand up.
That's okay. Just offering you a seat. Yeah. Whatever makes you happy.
Well, been out on some medical leave, and got all that taken care of, so it's
Good.
actually staying with no pain.
Oh, that's a good thing. Glad to hear that.
Raina had some things, handouts she wants to do to you.
I figured this might be easier, and that way, follow the PowerPoint, that way you can write on it. Oh, okay. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Sure, got one.
Is it this, right? FY 23 budget?
Yeah, one there. And it's the. Where's the PowerPoint? Call it.
I can't see.
Oh, I'm sorry. There, is this?
Yeah, that's not. Or sit here and control. Make sure this is. Okay.
Okay. Here you go.
Sorry.
All right, well, we've got a little PowerPoint here, and it kind of explains a little bit of what we're want to accomplish here. Says I believe that all constitutional officers should be responsible for all aspects of their office and employees. I'll be honest, many of the county policies and the personnel thing, they don't apply in a daily operation like the sheriff's office is. Because, we're like a 24-hour day operation. However, there are quite a few things in it that we've already implemented and that I use in the office to try and be consistent with the county. All our employees, they have to be to work at a moment's notice sometimes, and they're mandated to work overtime when needed. They also take continued education certifications on both sides, the law enforcement and the dispatch and other civilian employees. The average time frame to certify a deputy or communications officer and release them to work solo is approximately 8 to 10 months. In some cases, could be a little more. Just the training cost for a loan for a communications officer is around $27,000, and for a deputy, it's around $37,000. And that includes mostly their salary, time, and anything else that goes along with it. But what it doesn't include is the trainer salary that they're working with, because they're kind of tethered to somebody for a good little while before they're turned loose. Over the years, we've lost good employees, most to other jurisdictions. And it's for a myriad of reasons. A lot of it is more pay, better insurance, some left for the same amount of pay because they had less stress and demands of wherever they were going. Others left for family obligations, and a few were unable to meet their qualifications and certifications to continue on. Between FY 18 and FY 19, we lost 9 employees. Some went to work for other jurisdictions in the same, job, and some left just to do something else altogether.
Excuse me, sir. Chair. Actually, those 9, I didn't count, I didn't count the ones that left to do something different. Those 9 actually went to work for other jurisdictions for
Okay.
more money. Yeah, sorry.
But, and when they left for the pay, it was because surrounding jurisdictions was just paying more. And, I understand a lot of that, millions sometimes can't match some of their surrounding jurisdictions. Some of our people, 18 of us are comp board funded positions. Comp board, funds the county money and just helps with the operations of those 18 employees. But the big thing is with the comp board, you can see from 14 all the way up to 22. What you get from the comp board is not kind of inconsistent through the years. Some years you get some years you get nothing. That's just the way that falls. And we're appreciative of what, the supplements that we get from the county. But when you have that and a little bit of without a pay scale, it's hard to kind of structure people to make that up every year to make it so that there is an equal scale for everybody. What we did is we moved some money around, which was salary turnover. That's the difference between a vacated position and a new hire at a lower salary. We used to use that to try and combat some of the inconsistencies we had in salaries for some of the employees. We worked to make changes with the comp board. We moved all our positions to an L9 pay scale, which means starting deputy with no experience is a L7. They stay a year, they become an L8. If something in between, once they get that L8 position, if they decide to leave or they leave for whatever reason, the money that was in that L8 position reverts back to the starting salary, which means the funds coming from the compensation board was lower than what it was. Once you reach the L9, you don't lose that funding. It stays there. So we kind of did that to stabilize those positions. We had attempted to keep a pay scale, but without an equal pay raise on the entire salary, just trying to maintain the pay scale just wasn't going to work. Over the past 6 years, and you got it's kind of like a example right there. It would say what the comp board give is county contribution, and then you come up with a salary, and then it would tell you county contribution versus this other. Well, what it was coming out to be is we had 2 people with the same, you would have 2 or more people with the same yearly years on service doing the same job, one making, and there was a big discrepancy in between the 2. And that just, that just doesn't work good for the employees, and it also could raise the point to have lawsuits made by somebody for the county. In fact, in FY19, one of our employees gave up their entire county supplement, and we had to split it between 2 other employees that wasn't getting anything, just to make it fair. And they did that on their own. Last year in 21, except for the 2 new board members, we had you come down to the office, and we came up with a kind of a pay scale of our own that was competitive to the surrounding jurisdictions. We weren't
You know, we were a little less than some, a little more than some, but it was on a competitive thing. And that would work to a point as long as, you know, if they get a raise, it was on their entire salary, not just on one of the contributions, whether it be the county contribution or the comp board contribution. And with that, what we had said, if that year, I mean, because the county historically would give 1.5%. If the comp board had gave more than that, you know, 1.5% is what we would get, and the county would just absorb the rest of that was given. That was just to make that was to try and make it fair and have some kind of, you know, every year it had 1.5%. They were going to get they were going to get some kind of contribution. They were, it was going to go up at least 1.5%. And now if the county, for whatever reason, was going to match whatever the state contribution was, then on that pay scale right there, instead of the 1.5, you would just take that, whatever the percentage was, say it was a 2.5%, add it to that following year, but then after that, it reverted back to the 1.5 just to keep this chart fluid. Because it was kind of a fluid chart. It could go up or stay the same as how the percentages fell. And it worked on both that and the dispatcher civilian side of it. Now, the merit raises, this is a request that we're asking for, is requesting up to $29,362 for merit raises. We had looked at this proposed pay scale. This is the last study that was done by the county. And, you know, the employees, the merit raise would be the employees evaluated in the following categories, and they're the categories. And if they didn't make acceptable or above, then, you know, they didn't get the merit raise, and that was on them. And we did this to try, and we were looking at the merit increases. It wasn't going to be like a all at once thing. We had calculated it up because I think the county plan set up to it was up to 5 years to get to the competitive range that was on the plan. And that's what we had asked. That's kind of the way we wanted to do it until they got to that competitive range. The percentages for each would be different depending on where they fell in the category, where they were in the pay scale. So we could have those that are almost at the competitive range. Once they got there, then their merit raise would revert back 1% each year. But the others, you know, until they got to that point within a 5-year period, you know, their percentage may be more than others. But it was incumbent on them to get the merit, do good in the merit evaluation in order to get there. It wasn't just something they were going to get it no matter what. For promotions, again, we were looking at a proposed pay scale. When an employee is promoted, the salary for increased percentage varied due to their salary at the time of promotion. Therefore, having a set percentage, which would mean if somebody got promoted from deputy to sergeant instead of just a flat 10%, to get them to that competitive range, they may be close enough. They don't need it. They don't require that 10% to get to that competitive range. So, but that way, I would like to have the leeway to adjust that salary to fit that position based on those variables, not just a flat percentage. And, that way it kind of makes it a little more fair. Three, we've been asking, I'd asked for 3 new deputy positions. Officer safety is a concern, anymore. There's, we're still we're in 2022, and there are a lot of times that there's only one deputy out on a call by himself for whatever reason. We have some citizens that visit the office or call the non-emergency line. Sometimes they're waiting a little time before the deputy can get to them just because they're busy doing something else. And there's nobody else there working. Mental health transports and stuff like that, they take a toll now because mental health is a big time. It's a big thing. It's more time consuming now than what it used to be. And it's not anybody's fault. It's just the way the system is there at this time. The 3 new deputy positions with, businesses and some citizens have said, I'd like to see more deputies in certain areas of the county more. Well, a lot of times they're out there working, but they're not there because they're doing something here. They're either on a transport or somewhere else. They're not here. And more positions would help me alleviate that. And it also, 3 new positions would be, I have 4 in the academy right now. 2 are full, 2 will fill existing positions already there. And 2 of them were part-time positions out of the positions I was given the last budget thing. But what I'm finding out is part-time positions is hard to fill now. Most people that are looking for the full-time positions. I have 1 part-time position that is full, but I was lucky because he's retired and he was still up to date in all his law enforcement stuff. So he could fill that position. And because he's already retired from a state position, he couldn't take anything with the BRS anyway. That would just mess him up. But for 2 of the ones that are in school now, to make them full-time positions would give me the ability to use them not only in the courts and the civil process, but also use them on the road too. And the 3rd position would just be a brand new that does not filled at this time. This next slide, Randy, you might want to help out with this because, like I say, I was on medical leave on some of this stuff, so I may not be 100% on it, but Randy then has worked on it, and she can kind of tell you the ins and outs of these next couple slides.
So, and I may have titled that one wrong, but currently we have, these 2 positions right here are for our part-time dispatch. And then the rest of these, this one's occupied, it's a part-time deputy, the gentleman who was just speaking of. And then these are the ones that you granted us last budget year. And 2 of them are occupied. And these are the ones where we've been having difficulty filling. So with this chart, all of these 8 positions together is this total after the increase. The ones that are highlighted, these 5 positions, is this. Okay. And what Sheriff has asked, flip the page, is to do a trade term, okay?
So
Sorry.
reducing 5 part-time
Yes,
Place with 3 full-time.
yes. To do the 3 full-time positions, keep the 2 part-time applications. One is already occupied for the part-time deputy. And the difference between the 8 positions here that we currently have versus the 3 full-time and 3 part-time is this. Here's the totals and there's the difference. Let me- I don't know.
Yeah.
And again, the difference in those could help to offset, like the fringes and stuff like that.
I'm sorry, oh, never mind, I have a copy.
We can actually get,
No, you're good.
we get more deputies on the road and save money,
That's the idea.
or more deputy presence,
Yes.
regardless of where they're at.
All right, the next slide is,
Yeah, that's good.
shows you the additional costs would be for all of these, for those positions. Your vehicles and equipment, right, it's kind of rounded up to by the time you buy the vehicle, it's 65,000 times 3. Then the firearms and the apparel would only be for 1 because the other 2 already have all that stuff. And the last slide is kind of what we were proposing. On the salaries, it would be a county raise of 7% on the full salaries. That's with, that figure is just what we got now. If we add the 3 full-time that as approved, it would raise it up to the next figure on there. And then the merit raises would be that. And for the current part-time, at 8 part-time people is that figure. If we do 3 full-times, it knocks the part-time budget down to the 68,000 versus the other. The overtime is, we're not asking for anything more than what we normally would have asked. We're asking for that, and then selective enforcement. The ECO and the TDO, we did raise that up to 20,000 because what currently we had 10,000. But to be very honest with you, we've already almost exhausted that with the mental health transports and all that now, because it's what used to could be a 8 to a 12-hour event sometimes goes into 2, 3, and 4 days. Because the hospital won't release them until they have a destination for them to go. So, which means I have people there, maybe 10 hours, at least 2 deputies at a time, sitting with them. The hospital security is not going to help you with them. We're lucky enough, we do a MOU with Crossroads. They have a CTAC, and sometimes we have a CTAC officer that will sit with them, and we just have to go back after they're off their shift. But like I say, it's that kind of gone, it runs in spurts. It'll go easy for a while, and then we may have numerous ones all in 1 week. But like I say, it's gone from 1 day affair to possibly 2, 3, and 4 day affairs now. Like I say, it's nobody's fault. It's just the way the times are now. The rest of our operating budget is pretty close to the same. It's not a lot of difference in the rest of the operating budget. And I would just encourage each of y'all to think about this. I know it seems like it's a lot that we're asking for. But for me, I wouldn't ask for it if I didn't need it to do the job. And I mean, it's like everything else, the price of doing things goes up every year. But to do the job and do what I think is expected, this will get us there. Like I say, with the merit raises, we're not asking for, we're just asking that to take place over a 4 to a 5 year period. We're not asking for anything all up front. We're just asking for within 4 or 5 years, if we get these other folks up to that competitive mid-range according to salaries on that salary study that the county did.
When you say the county rate, like on the 7% on the full salary, so if it's a position's fully funded by the county, that's easy. It's 7% times salary. For a position that's got a partial funding by the comp board and the rest by the local, so 7% on the full plus what the comp board is increasing, or you just need to make up
What we
the
were
difference?
asking is 7% on the full, anything that exceeded, say the comp board gave you a 5%.
Right.
Anything that exceeded that would be absorbed by the county.
That's the way I understand.
We're not
Okay.
asking,
That's what
we're not asking
that's-
that plus, we're just asking
Perfect.
for that.
Yeah, that was what we were, earlier this afternoon, we were chatting about that a little bit with Carla for
It's
not
only,
just your.
it's only, the pay scale only works on the raise on the full salary, not
Yeah.
on the contribution.
It is it is definitely challenging when you've got the mix funding that.
It is. Like I say, there's only 18 of us that are on, they're competent funded. Rest are all county funded.
Right.
These fall within the Baker Tilly. These ranges fall within the Baker Tilly.
Yes, the ranges fall. That's why with the merits, we had got to do the 4 or 5 year period to get them to that competitive mid-range of the Baker, of that last study. Not to, try to get it all at once. It gives them a chance. And if, they don't make the two, I guess, evaluations on the evaluations to get there, then they wouldn't be eligible for that merit increase. And that's on the employee. It's not on anybody else.
Right.
Back to the very beginning, when you're talking about the differences in your employees and office than some other ones, totally agree with that. You definitely have a different kind of job. What confuses me though is with the personnel policy, we allowed each department to go and make all the adjustments that they wanted that would fit there. So we didn't force that you had to do exactly what the county does. The idea was just getting it all documented and so that we can see in one place where departments are different. What's the reason that
Some of the
can't be done?
differences, some of the
Because it doesn't-
differences is because, you gotta look at, inclement weather and stuff where, you know, some of the civilian employees at the office, like, the two, like Raina and Stacy, they are able to do that, and we allow them to do that. But most of the employees, they don't, they don't get that. They have to, they have to come to work, they gotta get to work.
But I understand that.
They might get stuck at work.
But what I'm confused about is we said you, and it's not just you, by the way, we got 2 other departments too. We said y'all could make all those changes in it if you wanted, like you just needed to write it down. So I think we all agree you're going to have it different for those reasons. Why not just write it down though so we had one policy where it's all documented for the county? That's what I'm having a hard time understanding.
Well, it was just, some of it just didn't work for us. It was just, there was one part of it, and I guess maybe the disciplinary part of it. In my office, there is no grievance procedure. And it's because.
We allowed for that though. We allowed each department to say, doesn't apply to us. We have no grievance procedure, because there's 3 that have no grievance procedure. Yeah. We don't, that's still where I'm getting confused is write whatever you want.
And it could have been something that we just maybe wasn't exactly right in what you all had put forward. So that could be on us, but for some of this, a lot of the stuff that some of the HR stuff, we use down there. We use because it really pertains to us.
Right. Okay.
Right in the book that we had
Was we printed off the book and we started reading through it? I didn't bring it where we highlighted.
So,
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I don't think we got, like, y'all didn't give us any adjustments to the draft.
I didn't hear any. I didn't get an email.
I know you weren't who was the rep?
I went to the
Yeah.
meeting and
Yeah.
we only had the one and that I was invited to. And when we left, it was discussed to do an MOU. And then later it was told, no, you know, it's gonna be done. There was no other meeting with our office in reference to this policy, the information you talked about.
Okay, well, we can follow up. So it sounds like we can follow up. Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
The only one left is Dr. Harper. Take a small little recess here. Hit pause. We can carry on.
Good afternoon.
Hello, thank you.
Beautiful Amelia. So we have a PowerPoint that we printed for you, and we will be going through each of the pages, some in more detail than others. A lot of this information was provided at the recent school board meeting. However, I don't think that you were in attendance. You might have been online, but this will give you an opportunity to ask questions as well. So the first page discusses the part of the code that addresses estimation of monies for public schools, the fact that it needs to be a needs-based budget. And these are the code sections that apply to that. Second, the next page are the goals set by the school board back in the fall as we begin our budgeting process in October. And just very briefly, the goals were to provide salary increases that help us maintain a local ranking of 4 out of 7, meaning right in the middle of where we are with surrounding counties, to assist staff with the implications of the increases in health insurance, increase our course offerings, provide counseling and conduct management assistance, provide a program for students to learn conduct expectations, and use creative methods to address learning loss. The next page gives you some budget history. And since we have new members on both our school board and on the Board of Supervisors, we thought this might be a good time to go and take a step back and discuss how we budget today in comparison with how budgets were prepared prior to our arrival. So Ms. Bullock and I arrived in 2019. The FY20, which is the 1920 school budget, had already been prepared at that point. We have been responsible for the FY21, which, as you know, was the fiscal year where the pandemic hit in March of 20, and the FY22, the proposed FY23 budgets. So here's some key things that I think are important so that you understand how we have been working with the budgeting process, okay? So in the past, budgets were created based on the previous budget. So whatever the budget was before, we're going to increase the budget by X%. That was the new budget. We don't work that way. We follow the code that says it has to be a needs-based budget. So we are basing our numbers on historical expenditures, okay, instead of what the number was in the past. In the past, budgeted salaries were based on the previous year. So if you're giving a 5, 7, whatever % increase you're giving, it was across the board and that line item increased by that amount. Now we budget based on actual personnel. That means is we have a list of every employee in the school division, what step they're on, what their salary is, so that when we budget for the next year, we're not budgeting generic numbers, we're budgeting real people, real numbers. In the past, the health insurance was budgeted for every employee in the school division, whether they used it or had it or not. We only budget for those employees who are signed up for the health insurance. In the past, they charged items to the appropriate funding line until those funding lines were capped. And then they would charge whatever it was to a different line. We know this because of our examination of the budget and our fiscal systems when we arrived. Now we make sure everything is budgeted, everything is charged to the appropriate line. Because if we didn't do so, we wouldn't know what the actual expenditures are for those items. Okay. And then finally, some purchases in the past were made outside of the accounting system. So when we arrived, we found handwritten purchase orders, but those weren't logged into the financial system. Okay, now everything goes through that financial system. And there's this checks and balances, and Ms. Bullock has to make sure that everything is approved before it goes through.
So to kind of add to that, when we started, they budgeted based on previous budget. They didn't always charge expenditures exactly where they should have gone because instead, it's easier to do that than move the appropriations around within the categories. So we don't do that anymore, but the last couple of years in particular are difficult to budget for the schools because we haven't had a regular school year. And so if you look at our FY '21 and our FY '22 expenditures, FY '20 and '21 expenditures, school closed March of 2020. So that was the end of the 19-20 school year. And then the 2021 school year, students weren't in school 5 days a week. We weren't driving kids back and forth to school 5 days a week. We didn't have buildings open 5 days a week. So you'll notice probably some differences in the fuel line in particular and electricity. Maybe the water bills have looked like historically they've been a little less, but it's because we haven't served students 5 days a week in those last couple of years.
And even for this year, we haven't had as many field trips by far. We haven't done as many athletic trips. So we still expect things to be a little different next year because we hope to be fully operational with everything next year. The next page provides you with information about the recent salary study that was conducted in the fall. We do a salary study every 2 years as I know that the county recently went through a salary study as well. And we compared ourselves with the 6 surrounding counties. Those are the ones with whom we compete the most for employees. And decided that the most appropriate place for us to be, to at least be able to be somewhat competitive, would be to be right in the middle, which would be a rank of 4 out of 7. And our salaries were at a rank of 5. And so we worked to get them to a rank of 4. And that's why you see one of the goals of the school board is to maintain that rank so that we can maintain our employees as well as attract new employees. And this is not based on a number by number. This is an average every 5 steps, because you'll see like Cumberland has big blocks of the same salary and then they have a huge jump. So you can't really average.
It skews that average. So
Right.
we averaged step 0, 5, 10, 15 to kind of keep it consistent through the ranks. And like she said, we know that we won't pay more than everybody. We will never probably pay more than Chesterfield. We have a hard time competing with Dinwiddie and Powhatan, but we should be able to beat out Cumberland, Prince Edward, and Ottaway. That was the goal.
The next page shows you some of the things that we have done each year to try to streamline the budget. And you'll see the majority of these were for fiscal year 21, which was the first year that we were responsible for development of the division's budget. So we started out going line by line through that FY '20 budget to figure out what was appropriate, what was not, and make reductions where we could make reductions. And in addition to doing line item reductions, we did additional reductions in teacher positions. We did something called asset management, and we did an asset analysis to see what positions were required by the state through the SOQs, what value each position had. And through that asset analysis, we were able to make some decisions about reducing some positions, including teaching and paraprofessional positions and office staff positions. And then, as you'll see, we continue to make reductions in the FY '22 budget and also in the FY '23 budget. But as you would expect, if we have done a good job of streamlining the budget, there would be fewer and fewer areas where we could do any streamlining. And so that's why you'll see the majority of them in FY '21 and just a couple in the proposed budget for next year. But the overall savings from that streamlining in FY 21 dollars, in FY 22 dollars, and in FY 23 dollars is $678,253. And this is what I call being fiscally responsible and being fiscally conservative. Most school divisions would have left those dollars in their budget.
Oh, yeah.
So the next page shows you some of the things that have been requested for the upcoming school year that are not in the budget. We had a very difficult time getting substitute. And so the schools asked, would you please give us a permanent substitute position for our schools? But we did not put that in the budget. We should be purchasing 2 school buses every year. We've only placed 1 in the budget. The middle and the high school are both in need of additional teaching positions to cover electives for students. They both have requested a CTE teacher. What we decided to put in the budget was 1 teacher shared by the 2 schools instead of 1 teacher for each school. And then you see library circulation desk, that's falling apart and needs to be replaced. And an innovation specialist was requested, and that was also not placed in the budget. The next page shows you additional expenditures. And at the time that we asked the school board to prioritize the additional expenditures with the priorities that you see on the left, we had no idea that fuel costs were going to take a huge jump. And as you can imagine, with diesel buses, that can cost an additional amount of money. So we have added that, Ms. Bullock has calculated that based on previous usage and working with Southern States. That's our source for fuel. And so our budget does include $168,000 more for the anticipated increase in fuel costs. Also, salary increases for staff. As you are, I'm sure, are well aware, the cost of food, the latest report is 7.9% increase in cost of food and like 25.6%, I believe, increase in energy costs. The school division is not the only ones who are experiencing those additional costs. All of our employees are as well. Health insurance increase. Our goal is to keep our health insurance costs, the percent that we pay for employees, the same. And we know that we've been estimated an increase of 10%. While it's fortunately not as high as we've had in the past, an increase of 10% is a significant increase. And we don't have the actual number yet, but that's what we're projecting. So we are not proposing that we cover the entire increase. We're proposing to keep our 83% that we fund of the health insurance at that 83%.
The only difference to that is that currently our health insurance rates are so expensive and they're so expensive to our staff that we don't pass the federal affordability test for health insurance for our staff, which is a problem. And so what that means is we need to have an employee-only coverage. Our cheapest plan for employee-only coverage, that premium for the employee needs to be reduced. And so we would maintain that same 83%, but for our high deductible plan, we would adjust that employee premium so that employee-only coverage would be $75 a month, which is still astronomical when you look at health insurance. And probably if you compared our health insurance to the counties, you would see that our employee cost is much greater.
And we provided you with some data there on the percent that the county provides in terms of how much it takes under the health insurance for county employees. The next item is Title I teacher. The Title I teacher is currently funded in the Title I grant. That's a person that supports reading instruction. And I can think of no time in history where reading instruction is more critical than it is right now, following a pandemic and challenges with student learning loss. However, that Title I teacher and the Title I paraprofessional, we will not be receiving sufficient Title I funds to continue to keep those individuals in the Title I grant. And so that's where those funds have shifted from the federal grant to locally funded. Custodial services, you've probably heard, we had the RFP and the least expensive bid was still $67,000 more than the current one. Of course, with the increase in hourly wage requirements, I'm sure that's where a lot of that comes from. We have an assistant principal. There is a proposal before the state that would require a 1 to 500 ratio for assistant principals in schools. That has not passed yet, but like many other things that have come down the pike, for example, school counselors, we knew that there was a proposal of 1 to 250. And so we start preparing for that before it gets here, because we don't know how quickly it will. And once it's in the SOQs, we have to fund that. So we are preparing for that now. It is definitely needed. And so that's why that's in the budget. As I mentioned earlier, 1 school bus has been added instead of 2. And you might say, well, you already have a line for school buses, but we still have those leases from before that we're still paying on. So this has to be additional funds. It can't be what's already in the budget. A special education teacher, the coordinator for special education at the elementary school is responsible for twice as many students as those at the other schools. And yet still half of her time is spent in a classroom teaching. And so this position would help to alleviate that so that she could take care of all of those IEP meetings and eligibilities and all of those things instead of having to have a dual role. Substitute expenditures, obviously the minimum wage increase is the reason for why we need to increase that line. CTE STEM teacher, I think I mentioned before that we want to split that elective teacher between the middle school and the high school. Amelia Nottoway Technical Center has been working to increase enrollment and increase their course offerings. And they are proposing adding building trades and adding an early childhood program, and their estimated cost, which is 40% of that cost, because Amelia covers 40% of that budget, is the $69,000. The next item is stipend alignment. So our stipends, that's what our coaches are paid. There are a few other categories where people receive a stipend for extra work. Our stipends have not increased in many, many years. In fact, people can't tell me how long it's been because they can't remember the last time that those coaching and other stipends increased. So we did a study, just like we did a salary study, and came up with a formula to keep those stipends somewhat in line with other counties, as well as keep them as the base teacher salary increases from year to year. So then would the coaching stipend. So if a coaching stipend was, say, 5% step 0 teacher position, and that step 0 teacher position increased, then that stipend would increase a few dollars. The next one is Code RVA. This is a specialty school for coding and technology. We currently have 2 students there who are freshmen. The board made a commitment to have a minimum of 2 students added each year until we, like many other school divisions, have 2 freshmen, 2 sophomores, 2 juniors, and 2 seniors. So each year, there will be an additional cost until we have the 8 students that we're committed to. Maintenance technician, this has been in our budget, well, every year that I've been in here, and I've been told that it was here in the budget many years prior to that. You know, our facilities are aging. You saw the report that was provided by Mosley Architects, and our maintenance employees are busy all the time. There's just not enough of them to go around, and they need more assistance. Technology software, the next item.
We are much more into technology than we were, say, even 5 years ago. And the pandemic really facilitated that. And so software prices are increasing as well as the amount of software that we use. Number 15 is an ACES STEM teacher. So the elementary school has a teaching position. So students go to PE, they go to art, they go to music as kind of their elective or resource classes. One of those classes is a STEM class, but it is taught by a paraprofessional and not a licensed teacher. And so we need to get that position to be a licensed teacher. And the last item was what was in the original budget proposed by the previous governor. And we do not expect it will make it through this budget process. So it was very specific to school construction. It doesn't really impact our regular operational budget, but it was there as part of that original budget. So on your next slide, you see this is where the House and Senate budgets are at the present time. As you know, the General Assembly has taken a recess, and when they come back, hopefully they won't drag their feet on a state budget. But at this time, the House and Senate budgets are very far apart. And so this is based on our ADM that we placed in based on the budgets that are being proposed by both the House and the Senate. And so you will see that the amounts in requested increase in local share differ between the House and the Senate. The next slide shows you impact of change in the composite index. We talked about the composite index quite some time ago. I think we addressed it when we met with you at a previous work session and explained that, you know, the county's composite index is based on the true value of real property in the county, the adjusted gross income in the county, and taxable retail sales in the county. Okay? And the state takes that, each locality's index, and it's adjusted to maintain that overall state local share of 45% and overall state share of 55%. And when the county's composite index increases, as Amelia's has, that means that the county sees Amelia as a county that has a greater fiscal ability to pay for educational expenses. So as the statement on the slide says, since the composite index has increased, the state expects Amelia County to contribute a greater share to public education expenses due to the increase in the county's fiscal stability. So on the right side, you see a table, and that table shows you the prior composite index, the state and local shares, as compared to the new composite index, state and local shares for the FY23 budget. Not this year's, we're talking next year's budget. What is the impact of the change in the composite index in terms of what the state is expecting Amelia County to contribute more toward education?
So these are numbers from the House budget. And so if we have the new composite index at 0.3652, and so we anticipate $12.9 million from the state. Had our composite index not changed, we would be receiving $277,000 more than what we're budgeting for. That's something that is completely out of our control. The state sets that, and we hate that it increased just as much as y'all do, but.
So we're happy Amelia County's in a bad place, but we're not unhappy about how that impacts the funding for the school division. So as Ms. Bullock just said, we proposed a budget based on the House because that is the most conservative budget and the safest way to go when you're thinking about next year.
But also because the House more closely aligns with the governor's priorities or his goals. And so we anticipate that as they reconvene, that whatever passes will be more closely aligned with the governor, and that would be the House. So it probably won't be exactly the House budget, but we expect it to be closer to the House and the Senate budget.
Right. And then the last slide that we provided for you is, we've just heard rumblings. Okay, what if you get level funding? What is the school division going to do? What would the school division have to do? And so this slide provides you with some of the possible implications of level funding. You've got to remember, level funding would mean that the whole gasoline increase, the diesel fuel increase, the composite index change. I mean, the health insurance costs, we have no control over that. The custodial contract. I mean, there's several factors that software that there are several factors that, those numbers aren't going to change. And so, if we had level funding, it would mean we would have to make cuts, not only cuts in some of the things that we're proposing as additions, but in other programming such as field trips, middle school athletics, out of district athletic events, CTE programming, the technical center. I mean, there's a host of possible things here. So. Do you have anything else you'd like to share?
Just here to answer any questions that anybody might have.
I got some. I'm trying to figure out some things.
Okay.
Cause I've got different amount in a lot of different places in the budgets.
All right.
So that's what I need some clarification of, please.
Sure.
The one that sticks in my head is custodial. Originally, it was 30,000 increase and now it's 67,000.
Correct. One was an estimate, the other is the actual.
So at that point, when we put the original budget together, the RFP hadn't completed. And so I don't even know that the RFP had been issued quite yet. And so we knew that we were going to RFP custodial services. We knew an increase was coming. We didn't know what that was. Since then, the RFP has been completed. A vendor has been chosen and the cheapest, and we chose the cheapest vendor. The cheapest vendor bid $67,000 more than what we currently
All
have.
right, so the second budget that we've gotten is not the right one then.
So
Is it the right one?
I don't know which one you have, but the one that the school board just approved has the 67,000.
See, I don't know. That's what I've been trying to figure out because I'm confused.
That's okay. So I can.
I've got one that shows a fuel of 300 and some thousand.
That's the one that just passed. So.
But then this just said 168.
Referred to the increase.
You increase.
So we doubled it. We originally budgeted 168,000.
That's right.
We have doubled that.
Okay. So you're going with the 3 something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And we're hoping that's enough, quite frankly.
Yeah, it's about $8,000 less than what I've projected it to be, but I'm hoping that with field trips and with just getting back into the swing of things, we won't need that.
And what happened to the lottery money?
It's
I
here.
thought that was, yeah, but it's not like it used to be. So where is the big sale that we're bringing the lottery in for the schools? So where did the money go? Because there's a lot of lines in here from prior years that it was there, and then now we got blanks.
Well,
that's the state.
The state does that, and we get lottery funding for at-risk, and we get some other different types of funding for at-risk. And so the state, when they get together and they decide on their budget, they decide how these different programs are funded. And so you just pull it down from DOE.
I think historically they've given a lot of their to construction of new schools with the lottery funds as well, which we're not constructing. So benefits the bigger counties.
That's right.
More than it does the smaller.
Right.
And one of the things that's challenging is that, like the SOQ positions, the state will fund a portion of that position, but not the whole position. And then they fund that portion of a position based on the ADM and based on the composite index. So, you don't have 0.68 of a person, but the state might only fund us 0.68 of a person.
And then of that,
Like our top board position. So we have that same math going on in the others. Yeah.
Yeah. And then of that 0.68, they fund their share and then we're expected to pick up the difference.
Yeah.
I've got one question.
Sure.
A couple months ago, we did something with the textbook fund,
Mhm.
passed a resolution to empty that account.
Not to empty it. So textbook funds are, I don't know the technical word for them, but they carry over from year to
They
year.
roll.
They just roll over and it's not like our general fund that, or our local fund that kind of dumps back into the general fund every year. And so they're intended to roll from year to year so that when you do a large textbook adoption, you can fund that because typically those large textbook adoptions cost more than what you would receive in a year. And so that money that you said would dump that account, we just rolled all of those unspent textbook funds from year after year into our current budget, so we could spend them if we needed to. We did a science adoption, I believe, this year, and so
And then there's,
That
it costs
happens
quite a
just
bit.
about every year.
Yeah.
Like the fire department does for theirs then too. Some years it's less, some more, but they keep, yeah.
And so,
And it's separate from the other funds. So textbook funds are separate and when you get the reports each month, you see you have operating, you have a textbook, you have a cafeteria. They're separate.
and so textbook funds come from the state and they require a local match, which is why you see them kind of on the budget again this year. So that's money that's budgeted from the state to receive next year, and then the required local match to match that.
okay.
The other thing that does a similar thing are the federal grants, because the federal grants operate on a federal fiscal year and not the same fiscal year. They operate October 1st, whereas our fiscal year starts July 1st. And so, and some of those grants allow you to use them for more than, they allow you to use 20% of them for more than 1 year. And so if we haven't, like if we didn't use all of last year's Title I grant, we would have to ask to roll those unused dollars into this year, even if they expired September 30th, but our new fiscal year is July 1st. So we might even be finishing them by September 30th, but we need those allocations rolled.
Which is typical. We kind of ask for those appropriations every year.
How did we arrive at the salaries from the other counties? I mean, what was the point? How did you pick this?
Our HR of the particular counties or?
Well, just pick Chesterfield, for example. That was the easy one I could find info on.
Yeah. So our HR director reached out to each of the different school divisions. Some of them list their salary scales online, some of them do not. And so the ones that do not, she reached out to those divisions and was able to get that information. And so, but like y'all, all salary information is public. And so all you have to do is ask and you get it. But those counties, we picked them because they border Amelia.
Yeah, but I mean, how did you pick like Chesterfield for step 0? We'll just say 46,000.
That's what Chesterfield,
That's their salary.
that's what they gave our director of HR.
For well, see this is what I'm just trying to figure all this out. See, that's what I pulled off the internet off of Chesterfield's website.
So this is last year's salary scale.
That's right.
That's right. So
That's right.
she would have reached
So
out.
is this?
No,
It's
This-
2021.
correct. But this is our 21-22 school year. So because of the
Your
school,
number is different than the fiscal year number.
it's actually the same. So our fiscal year, it runs from July 1, 2021 to June 30, 2020.
That's
So
right.
this is our FY 22 salary scale information because it was surveyed within FY 22. So this is FY 21. This is the prior year.
I'm lost because it said December 21.
That's right.
That's when the study was done.
It was done in December. That's
Right.
when y'all did it.
That's
Right.
right. But
Okay.
that's FY
For this
22.
school year. This school year is 21-22 school
Yeah,
year.
this year is, yeah.
That's
That is.
But the budget you're
20
working on from last year would be 20 to 21, correct? This year is, 21 to 22 is this
This
year.
current year.
This
which
one
is-
we're working on now will be 22 and 23.
That's right.
Right.
So this is what we did in FY 22.
Okay,
This is not FY 23.
okay.
And so we have kind of extended out. We have We have heard rumors or have seen budget presentations from other school divisions and know pretty much what they're offering for salary increases. And so we've done kind of a preliminary salary study for those counties, and we know that the percentage increase that we would like to give our staff helps us to maintain that 4 out of 7 ranking.
Mhm. I understand. I was just looking at numbers, trying to figure out how did you get the Chesterfield one? I mean, because like they give us a rate here, like a bachelor's.
That's right.
Take the numbers away. The years doesn't matter. I'm just trying to figure out what you used.
It would have been a
Bachelor's or bachelor's plus 18, class 2A, masters. So we just all used just the first column one is what we used.
Right.
Okay. That's what I was trying to get to compare, to see where we're at. Cause I mean, that's a $10,000 hit from year to year.
I can tell you that Chesterfield did not pay teachers. Their step zero was not $36,000 last year. I can tell you with 100% certainty that this is not accurate. So I can find it on their website and get it to you, but I'm telling you that Chesterfield did not pay $36,000.
Yeah, cause that's what I was trying to figure out. I mean, I was thinking
There's no way.
that's 10 grand
I mean, Prince.
difference off of, what was it? It was a state website. It was the, I don't know if I still have it on here or not.
Friends that have it, Chesterfield, that's not what they're paying for sure.
Yeah, I mean, 100% certainty. That
Yeah,
is
it was
not
it
what
was a
they-
DOE site, yeah, because the first time I went through it, because I was just checking things, and it kept giving me,
DOE doesn't typically have data even that.
yeah, because one of them kept giving me 2017.
Well, right.
And I'm
'cause they
like,
don't-
wow, we're a little far behind on 2017. So I just did a search. Hang on a minute, let me go in here. I mean, it's real simple. I should still have it,
I'm sure they got
because I usually keep all that garbage up top.
that. This will start.
I just Google search Chesterfield County Public Schools pay scale, and it's listed on their
It should be on their website.
website, and it is the figure that Todd's using, 36,751.
Maybe that's where I got it from. Then. I don't know, because I went through a bunch of sites.
That's probably where you got it.
But what year is that?
It's for 21, so it's might be exactly that.
So not 22.
Correct.
But even in 21.
Yeah, but did they get a 10 grand hit?
So they have
Year?
done this.
Oh, I remember last year that was a big thing, is how much they were increasing.
They did this huge salary compression and this humongous salary study. in
It was counted.
It was in the news.
Firefighters got $12,000, $15,000, $18,000 raises last year.
Yeah.
Did you get one?
No.
Yeah.
Some of the officers got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
So it might have been there. I don't know, because I Google searched it and it had me, I was in the bushes. I was everywhere. And then ended up in the Department of Ed, whatever that abbreviation was. And I mean, it was in 2017. I was thinking, we can't get anything any closer than that. But I don't know. That's just one of my questions.
I can find it. I can get it to you. That's no problem. That might be helpful.
All right, here's the FY 22 one. They also have this on their website, just on a different place. Starting is 37,801
All right, so
37,801.
for bachelor's and 0 years.
it's not right.
For FY 22.
It's not right.
Well, we'll just
But we'll-
follow up with, I was gonna
Yeah.
follow up and.
Yeah, just check it out.
Yeah.
There it is.
Did you do 0 years of experience?
So that,
I mean, there's probably a difference in that too. Make sure, go back to like he asked, go back to the criteria you use. I'd be surprised.
Yeah, see, that's what I was curious. Because I mean,
It's 0 experience.
it was $13,000 difference between a zero. Oh, and a doctor.
South Carolina. That's your same sheet though.
Chesterfield, South
I was on a totally.
This is South Carolina? No, mine was Chesterfield, Virginia.
I don't think
No, it's not though, because it's the exact same number.
same thing.
It is the same number?
Yeah.
That's the number it shows for there. Because I'll put Chesterfield VA in it. I might be dumb, but I ain't that dumb.
Well, here is the Chesterfield 21-22 salary scale.
Yeah, well, that was the wrong
And they're-
picture of the state of it.
Here, Todd. Yeah.
See, that number was wrong.
But the number you just said,
Yes.
Todd.
Damn, I am that dumb.
So here is the Chesterfield website. This is
Oh, there's
Chesterfield,
two.
Virginia.
There's two.
Right, so here's Chesterfield, Virginia. I
Besides
look at
here.
Their pace.
Besides it.
Yeah, so it's three total that
I
I,
bet there's more than that here.
yeah.
Bachelor's,
See,
$46,000.
that's what I wanted to see. That's all I was asking.
We're not lying.
But I ended up changing that and I put Chesterfield, Virginia. But now, me and Big Thumbs can Google the rest of the things. Well, see, that's why I don't like computers. 'Cause they're my enemy.
Yes.
I like this right here.
It's okay, I found it.
Triple check that.
I know we would be able to recruit lots of
I know.
teachers.
I was thinking, why are we so far off?
Maybe that's what I was just.
Too, because they're incorrect almost every month also.
Yeah, well, that's good. See, now you just made my life a lot easier.
Well, good. Any more questions?
Buddy?
No, that was mine. I was looking at South Carolina
It's okay.
somehow or another.
It's cost of living, we might want to consider.
I think it speaks volumes
That's
to the
tough in
schools that
Georgia.
it looks like a $1 million increase that they're asking for, but when you factor in the things that they have no control over, that's $860,000 worth of that $1 million. So they're only asking for $140,000 more than last year. If you factor in the things that they cannot control the cost of, the increases of, that's pretty impressive. So that shows that y'all made a lot of cuts from the prior year, the year before, to be able to compress these new positions and stuff, because that's a long list.
Yeah.
I don't have the math on that list, but the things that you want to add, that's quite a significant list to be $140,000 worth of increase. And I know the fuel and stuff is on there, but most of that is things that you want to add, the positions, the teachers. So to me, that's pretty amazing.
It's our tax dollars too.
And not to mention that that's almost the cost of the one bus you're asking for.
Yeah.
Give or take a few dollars. So it's not really that much of a increase.
And we are still praying that it will be better than the House.
Right. And yeah,
But
anything, if this is worst case scenario, anything will be better than that.
Well, I think that's good that you're basing it on the worst case scenarios in that case. Because it's such a big amount, you almost want such one, but that's good.
Scare us off at bat, then maybe they get better.
That's what we hope, yeah.
But we still don't know when they're going to do anything. They have no date to meet or nothing right now. And see, that's.
But if we don't meet our dates at the state
Exactly.
mandates, we're in trouble.
So how do we honestly sit here to vote on something that we don't know what it's going to be?
Well, budgets can always be changed and budgets are always in your plan at any one point in time. That's the reality. I mean, that's just the definition of it.
Your best guess of what you expect to happen next year.
Yeah. We're the peons,
I did
what you're told.
want to explain one more thing, if I could take 2 minutes.
Sure. Okay.
So last week, Carla listed a number for required local effort, and we had in the past listed a different number for required local effort. And so I wanted to take a minute to explain the difference. And so VDOE has counties meet two things, required local effort and required local match. And in the school world, we just call it all required local effort, just to kind of keep it simple. Most people don't understand the difference between the two. And so required local effort is a smaller dollar amount than the required local effort and the required local match combined. Okay, and so if you were to look at the calc tool, which is where we get the funding amounts from the state. So we go on the DOE website, we pull down what we call the calc tool. It's a spreadsheet and it shows us by category or by project or however you want to call it, where our funding is coming from and the dollar amounts that we need to spend on particular items such as at-risk or school construction. Okay. And it's listed into several different categories. It's listed into SOQ accounts. It's listed, it calls a section incentive programs, which is a little bit deceiving. It also has categorical accounts and lottery funded programs. Okay. And so technically The SOQ programs are the ones that are, they kind of have an A on my sheet beside them, are the ones that we don't have an option to participate in. If we don't spend X amount of money on special education every year, we will be in serious trouble. Okay. And so those programs, we don't have a choice. The other ones, the incentive programs or the lottery funded programs, we have an option. Okay. So we don't have to provide at-risk instruction. We don't have to provide early reading intervention. Okay. I say that loosely. All right. This is not the time to cut those things. And so I reached out to DOE to get a little bit better understanding and to have them explain some of these things to me. And I asked in particular, because I think the term incentive programs is deceiving, right? And so it makes it sound like it's over and above and it's really just a choice. And if you do all this extra, then we incentivize you with extra funding. And so there are only about 4 school divisions in the state that don't participate in all of those programs. And so I just wanted everybody to understand that while the number that Carla listed was correct, and that is the required local effort, if we also don't meet the required local match, we're looking at losing over $2.5 million in state funding. And so it's really, I think both of those pieces together help paint a clearer picture. And if you have any questions about that later, you can reach out to me, but I just thought it was important for everybody to understand.
It's a little over like a 2-to-1 match or 2.5 to 1.
It's like 1.3 from the county, about 2.5 from the state. And so it's big bucks when you're talking. And so we've got a lot of learning loss to recover from COVID. We have some big challenges with some of that. And so I understand that this budget year is tight, but when we start talking about where our dollars are spent and we look at state funding and we look at what they ask the county to provide also, it's important that we certainly aren't considering cutting some of those programs. It is definitely not in the best interest of our county and our children, so.
If you have questions that you think about later, please don't hesitate to call, email, whatever. I'm more than happy to address any of your questions, whether it's overall or a specific line, any of those. Please. No.
I know where you work.
We know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I end up in South Carolina.
I mean, attempt that.
Huh?
I wouldn't even attempt to wonder why.
It is the first one that pops up when you just tried it.
Those numbers were.
It's your first
10 years ago.
entire process.
That's.
South Carolina.
They've got their website turned up. So
Yeah,
you hit that.
They're getting a lot of hits. They
Yeah.
most want you to move down there.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Well, see, and I was looking at something else. It was talking about Magnolia Green, that Chesterfield just bought Magnolia Green. Well, that's Chesterfield County.
Right.
And then I don't know, I went off into the deep end somewhere along the line. I was drowned and somebody didn't throw me a life jacket.
All right, gentlemen, well, that brings us to the end of all of our people that wanted to speak. We still want to continue this on the 29th from 3 to 5. If we get close or we decide, we could take a short recess, grab a drink, something to eat, come back and maybe finish it up at night. Is that doable? Or we could let her do another day?
I can extend it.
You can, if you extend it now and decide in between that you don't need it for some reason, you can just put notice out that the meeting will be canceled or it will not be extended, or you don't have to show up to cancel. There are ways to get rid of it.
Would y'all rather do what you said a nighttime works for you?
Well, I mean, I kind of prefer it, but I mean, that's up to everybody else. I'm okay with this because I've already scheduled.
Why don't we extend it from 6 to 8 now? And then we don't need it, or we do need it and we need another one, it will already be in the works. Is that doable?
Yeah, that's fair. That gives everybody on your heads up.
And that way we can break for an hour to grab something. And
You mean on the 29th
yes,
from 5 to 8?
well, it'll be 3 to 5. And if we get done, that's great. We'll call it. But if we need more time, we have the 6 to 8 that night.
Okay, I got you. I'm good.
Yeah, that's fine.
Dexter? You good? I ain't even gonna ask you.
Are we good with putting that on the website and just getting that out there? In preparing for next week, does staff need to look at anything or have any questions for us that we may want when we get in our discussions? Speaking of, Carla, but she'll be here, but do we need any specific stuff we would want to look at, any specific figures?
Carla, I guess all of these seemingly newer requests today, they're already in your budget, right?
No, they are not in my budget.
They're not.
No, all that's in my budget is everybody's non-personnel requests and then currently funded positions,
Okay.
plus the COLA. So anyone asking for an additional person or additional raise above the COLA, we're told they had to.
So the sheriff's office,
All of those,
Everybody today.
everybody's.
everybody, okay.
Well, probably everything needs to be rerun.
I was planning on having.
Well, I think we haven't had discussions about whether what we think on any of these. I mean,
Don't have enough time, Paul. I was kind of thinking we would do that till next, give us a week. Do you think that's sufficient or do we?
to do what? I mean, I didn't say.
To think about it, process it,
Mhm.
and then we come in next week, we're actually getting into the discussion. That's
Yeah, no.
kind of what I was, is that what you're thinking?
No, that's fine.
Okay, I thought you said something.
No, I'm sorry. I'm agreeing.
Okay,
I mean, I'd just love to see that bigger number all, obviously I could do it myself, but sometimes it's easier for people to see it.
You might not want to see that one.
Well, the
That's
big numbers we haven't even talked about. I mean, the big
Yeah.
numbers, the CIP, we haven't even gotten there. So
do you want to talk about it now? I mean, we got time, or do you want to see this number, or how you want to do it?
I didn't press for that today because that wasn't on our agenda, but
Let's,
I can do whatever the group wants to do too.
let's do that next week. That way we all got time to prep. And Paul, will you get some numbers out to us before then? So
I
we
think we
can,
should start with the CIP and work our way.
Yes, I'll give you what each of these requests costs final dollars, so what the general fund would actually look like.
okay.
I can probably send that out tomorrow, hopefully. The sheriff's office, I might have to get with Raina. I wasn't fully followed. I want to make sure I have it all accurate.
Okay, that would give us some homework. And then we'll continue this meeting on to Tuesday at 3:00.
And we can probably have Carla there during working hours if we got any questions. And then be good.
We may get it done then. It may not need the extra, but we got the extra on standby if we need it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right.
Everybody good? All right.
To the continued meeting.
If I could just say that specifically, just kind of.
We're gonna continue this meeting on to until 3:29 at 3:00 here at the conference room.
Okay, thank you all.